All right, Tom Collier.
Yes, sir.
You're in charge of the Camp ASCCA reunion that's coming up in July.
That's correct.
June? July.
That'll be July the 13th. That'll
Okay.
be a Thursday, July 13th. And, camp is celebrating really 30 years of existence. And we want to celebrate that by trying to get a alumni reunion group coming up and try to get all the former staff and volunteers that have worked at camp and to be there for a special celebration on that Thursday. Although they're welcome to come in at any time during the week. That'll be during Camp Mobile Rotary.
We were talking yesterday about the number of counselors and program staff camps had before.
Right.
Thousands or 8,000?
I think over 1,000 probably. We really need to figure that up, but I'm guessing about 1,500 staff members that we probably had over the 30 years.
Talk a little bit about some of the ones that you know of that have gone on to other activities and why they should come back.
Okay. I guess a few of them that come to mind, probably first and foremost would be some that I worked with during that very first summer, which was 1976, and I was thinking particularly about Dr. Tommy Bice. Everybody knows him as TR, but Dr. Bice here from Alexander City, and has really moved on and received his doctorate and is now superintendent of education for Alexander City schools. So that's somebody that comes to mind. Judy Williams, whom you have interviewed. Of course, Judy was aquatics director during the very first summer, and I think even at that time was a teacher at the Alabama Institute for the Deaf and Blind, really the school for the blind, I guess, and now is retired from that. So Judy would be one that comes to mind. And then just numerous other ones throughout the years. We mentioned yesterday Harrison Long, who's now a dentist and has a practice in Wetumpka. Numerous people like Donette Dunnigan Mullenix now, who, as we were talking about, I think in 1978 was one of the first people that Jerry and I hired, and Donette was a special education teacher at the time and is doing that. And of course Mary Tim, who was a staff member here at camp, and I think Tim is probably still a nurse practitioner, I believe, is his occupation. So there are just countless others that are out there, and we would like to find out who they are. That would be a great opportunity to do that, to have them come back for the reunion. And I know they would really enjoy seeing folks that they work with, and then also have an opportunity to find out other staff members that they don't know that worked at camp and had the same mission and goals that they had while they were here.
Camper memories. I imagine that would be something that would be the highlight of every counselor staff reunion.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Do you remember your first campers?
I do. I remember my first campers in that 1976, and I remember the process. We had a very long orientation. We had a week-long orientation, and at that time we only had 8 counselors, I guess, 4 guys and 4 girls, and we had a very detailed orientation that would go through all of our campers that we had and describing them and what their disability was and what we might expect and anticipate. One of those I remember very well was Bob Woodward, who's a 42-year-old guy with cerebral palsy and needed total attendant care. And just a great camper. Of course, I was petrified to death of what I would have to do as far as care, but Bob was just a terrific camper, and every opportunity he would get, he had a communication board, and he would go through that process of telling you, well, I really appreciate all that you do for me, that type thing. So campers like that are going to be great memories for me and also for many other staff members.
I wonder if your wife Dorothy would remember her first campers.
Oh, I'm sure she would. I can't remember exactly who Dorothy had, but I remember she had several campers that she just fell in love with, and just thought they were the sweetest people on earth. And really, I guess that's how. Of course, that's how we met. And Dorothy and I became married from her association with camp, and I think it probably had an impact on her career. First going into nursing and becoming a registered nurse, and ended up being a registered nurse for camp, and then later on working as an attorney in disability law.
Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day. How many couples met, married, and they're having children,
right.
And now their children are kind of like yours, leaving high school, going to college.
Yeah. But one time we tried to do a count of the number of couples that met here at Camp ASCCA, and I know it had numbered in the 20s at one time. So I would think probably in the 20s or 30s, and it is pretty amazing, because here we are, you and I both as full-time staff and people we were working with when we were at camp, and now those folks are their own adults and have their own families, occupations, and children, and many of them that very well could be going into special education or a related
have a
field.
reunion with those couples at all.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah.
And I think it would be interesting to see if any of their children wound up going into special education.
Yeah, we're right at that. Camp is at that age now, 30 years of existence, where that could happen. Some of the other Easter Seal camps, I always think about some of the ones that we had the privilege of going and visiting some of those other camps, like the camp in Wisconsin, Wild Beak, and some of the older ones, and go, gosh, they're so old. They have campers and folks that are staff members that are now elderly, coming back, and and the stories of their children and them working at camp and their children working at camp, that type of thing is a true thing that can happen. And at some point, Camp ASCCA will reach that age where that'll be a reality for Camp ASCCA as well.
Yeah.